The battlefield was chaos incarnate. Andrew pressed himself against the crumbling wall of what had once been a supply depot, plasma fire scorching the air above his head. The Zinthora invasion had turned New Melbourne into a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. He checked his rifle, 3 charges left. Not nearly enough. Fall back. Someone screamed over the cum. Fall back to the secondary position. Andrew didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted through the smoke, boots crunching over debris, when movement caught his eye. A figure, humanoid but distinctly alien, lay crumpled behind an overturned transport. Purple blood pooled beneath her, staining the ground in an ever-widening circle. His training screamed at him to keep moving. She was Zinthora, the enemy. But Samantha's voice echoed in his mind. His sister's words from their last conversation before she'd shipped out to the outer colonies. We're supposed to be better than them. Andrew, that's the whole point. Cursing under his breath, Andrew changed direction. The alien woman's eyes snapped open as he approached, brilliant gold irises that seemed to glow even in the dim light. Her hand moved toward a weapon, but she was too weak. Andrew raised his hands, medkit already swinging from his shoulder. Easy, he said, knowing she probably couldn't understand. I'm here to help. She said something in her language, musical and sharp at the same time. Her armor was unlike anything he'd seen on regular Zinthora. Soldiers, sleek, ornate, with geometric patterns that seemed to shift in the light. Must be an officer, he thought. The wound was bad. Shrapnel had torn through her side, and from what Andrew could tell about Zinthora anatomy from the emergency briefings, she was bleeding out fast. He worked quickly, applying coagulant foam and nanite patches, his hands steady despite the thunder of artillery in the distance. Her golden eyes never left his face. She spoke again, softer this time, and though he didn't know the words, the meaning was clear enough. Why? Because someone has to stop the bleeding, Andrew muttered, securing the last bandage. On both sides, he was about to stand when her hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. She pressed something into his palm, a small crystalline device that pulsed with inner light. Before he could react, Zinthora troops materialized from the smoke, weapons trained on him. Andrew's heart hammered. This was it. He'd saved her life, and now he'd die anyway. But the soldiers didn't fire. They looked at the woman, then at each other, then dropped to one knee in perfect synchronization. One of them spoke rapidly into a communicator, while 2 others carefully lifted the wounded woman onto a hovering stretcher. The woman, the officer, the someone important, looked at Andrew one last time. She touched her chest, then pointed at him, and said a single word that sounded like a promise. Shalvara. Then they were gone, vanishing into the smoke as quickly as they'd appeared. The ceasefire came 3 days later. Andrew was in the medbay, getting his own wounds treated, when Commander Okoye burst in with a tablet and an expression of complete bewilderment. Wells, Andrew. Wells, tell me you didn't engage in unauthorized contact with enemy forces during the New Melbourne assault. Andrew's stomach dropped. Sir, I can explain, because if you did, Okoye continued, and if that contact involved rendering aid to a wounded Zinthora combatant, then you've just become the most important human being in this sector. Andrew blinked. What? Okoye thrust the tablet at him. On the screen was the alien woman he'd saved, now in pristine ceremonial robes, standing before what looked like a galactic council. Beside her image was text in both Zinthara and English Queen Jalnara Fashinta, Sovereign Empress of the Zinthara Collective, hereditary ruler of 47 worlds. You saved their queen, Okoi said, and despite his military bearing, he looked like he wanted to laugh. During a battle, while she was doing some kind of warrior pilgrimage ritual where she fights alongside regular troops, which apparently is a huge deal in their culture. Andrew couldn't breathe. I didn't. She was just bleeding. I didn't know she's calling for you specifically, by name. Says you invoked Shalvara, which is some ancient warrior code about honor transcending conflict. Okoi sat down heavily. The Zinthara High Command wants to negotiate. Not with Earth government. Not with the colonial fleet. With you. The Queen says any species that produces individuals who would save an enemy's life at personal risk is a species worthy of peace rather than conquest. The crystal device still sat in Andrew's pocket. He pulled it out, watching the light pulse within. What did I do? He whispered. You stopped the bleeding, came a familiar voice from the doorway. Samantha stood there, arm in a sling, but smiling wider than Andrew had seen in months. Just like you said someone should. She crossed the room and hugged him fiercely. The whole fleet's talking about it. The human who changed the war by giving a damn. Andrew held his sister close, looking at the image of Queen Jalanara on the tablet. Those golden eyes seemed to stare back at him across the distance. And he understood now what she'd been trying to tell him on that battlefield. Sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't a gun or a bomb. Sometimes it was simply the choice to see someone bleeding and decide to stop it. The Zinthara wanted to negotiate. After 2 years of war, there might finally be peace because one medic couldn't walk past someone dying, even if that someone was supposed to be the enemy. Shalvara, Andrew said quietly. Testing the word, Samantha squeezed his shoulder. What does it mean? Andrew smiled, remembering those golden eyes and the weight of her gratitude. It means the bleeding stops here.